good evening, and welcome to tonight's Shocker Family Table Talk, Your Student Health. My name is Alicia Newell, and I serve as the Assistant Vice President for Student Affairs at Wichita State. Proud Shocker through and through. With me tonight is our amazing Director of Student Health, Heather, and we're going to talk about everything you need to know in regards to preparing your students for their journey to Wichita State. Being at Wichita State for almost 20 years now, I think back to my own experience as a student. And one of the things that really kind of sticks home to me is I really wish I knew more of this type of information before I started school in my journey. And so as you all prepare in the next couple of weeks and getting your students ready for that next step, it's really important to understand how Wichita State University provides wraparound support and services from physical, mental, emotional health and well-being to support your student through this journey. And so throughout today's program, if you have any questions at all, feel free to place a comment in the comment box, and we will get to those as quickly as we can. But without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to Heather, let her introduce herself and get started.
Well, welcome, new Shocker parents. My name is Heather Stafford. I'm the Director of Student Health Services. I've been here almost 18 years. Can you believe that, Felicia? And, I have lots of information to share with you. Some of you who may have gone through orientation may have seen some of these slides. I might share a little more in-depth information with you tonight, but if you have any questions, please throw it in the chat and we will answer them as we see them. Basically, I'm here to tell you about our services, some of the health requirements that new students are needing to have done before they come to campus, and maybe some preparation that will help you and your student feel better, at least health-wise, starting this new year. Next slide, please. So what is student health? That could be a lot of things, and it could be mental health and it could be physical health. We are actually what you would say a primary care facility on campus for students to receive healthcare services. We are located in the Student Wellness Center, which is inside the WSU YMCA, and we are on the first floor. Counseling and prevention, or counseling services, and HOPE, Health Outreach Prevention Education Services, are also in the building with us. And as we serve as a primary care for students, we see students for lots of different things. They come to us because we're affordable and convenient. A lot of our providers and staff have been in college health here for many, many years. And so we, consider ourselves specialists. We do preventative health, physical exams, well person physicals. We also do a lot of acutely ill, acutely injured. We see students for mental health, medications, whatever they need with that. We also do a lot of gynecological services for students who represent as females and want to investigate contraception and different things like that. We have a laboratory right here, so we don't have to send your students off campus to have blood drawn. We have in-house laboratory services like strep tests, flu tests. Of course, we test for COVID, and those are free for now. And we also have our own, what we call a institutional drug room. It functions kind of like a pharmacy, but we're not a commercial pharmacy like Walgreens. So your student would have to see one of our providers to get a prescription filled. We don't carry the full gamut of what a commercial pharmacy would carry, but we have a lot of medications, including over-the-counter medications. To give you an idea of some of our prices, we have a 30-day supply of generic Claritin for $3. And that is a really, really good deal. And for over-the-counter medicines, your students can just walk in and purchase them. They don't have to stay in bed. We also have radiology services. We have an agreement with a facility that comes out to our clinic and does x-rays, ultrasounds. And so your student just has to be seen on campus for that. We do a lot of vaccinations. Your normal ones that would be for adults, as well as we can start students on series that they may have not had when they were children. We do a lot of tuberculosis testing as well for students, and we'll get to that in a little bit. We have a lot of specialties that are coming to our clinic these days. We have an ear, nose, and throat specialist. We have a gynecologist, athletic training staff from the Department of Athletic Training come in and do exercise prescriptions for students. And then we also have physical therapists who come in and see students for chronic injuries. We don't do post-surgical, but we do a lot of chronic injuries, and we've had a lot of good response to that as well. I think our number one service that has been the best that we've offered this last year was a dietitian. Students are really looking for that additional support when they are cooking their own meals, trying to figure out how to prevent weight gain as a college freshman, or maybe they have a chronic illness that they're trying to help support on their own with diet. And then we also do, like I said, mental health medications as well as ADHD medications, and we'll get to that as well. And then we are very supportive of our LGBTQ plus students, and we support them with hormone therapy. We also support them in many other ways. And so we're kind of a well-rounded place for your students to receive healthcare. Next slide, please. I think the biggest thing that your students will probably use the most with student health services is our My Shocker Health patient portal. The reason why this is so important, excuse me, is because students really want that digital engagement. And getting into our portal, not only can they make online appointments and get text message reminders, they can pay their bills, they can upload immunizations into the portal, but they can also message a healthcare provider or nurse. You know, they're in classes all day. This is the easiest way to have a communication with one of our providers where they don't have to wait for phone calls and have that ongoing conversation. And so like last year, we did 18,000 messages with students because it is a very popular service that students really feel like they're getting support at any time during the day that they're looking for it. Next slide, please. Our medication services, I touched on a little bit. Like I said, we have an institutional drug room. We do not carry controlled substances, but we have a lot of prescription medications. Your student does have to see one of our providers, and that's easy to do. If your student is out of town and not from Kansas or anywhere in the local area, they can just come in and establish service as one of our providers. It doesn't mean they have to let go of your personal physician, but they can have somebody here that they trust and that they can get their prescriptions that need refilled that are maybe for chronic illnesses like asthma, anemia, thyroid disease, and diabetes 1 and 2. So all of those kind of things can help be managed with our providers as well. And like I said, our over-the-counter medicines are very prevalent, and a list of all of those will be put on our website here in the next month or so. Our mental health medications, we start a lot of students on anxiety, depression. We can also help continue that for students who are already on those medications. We can also get students either refill their ADHD medications or get them started. We do ask them to have either maybe an evaluation from their high school, or if they want to see one of the counselors in our counseling department upstairs, they can see them and be evaluated, and then we can go ahead and prescribe them some ADHD medications. With the Adderall shortage right now, we also really help students find ways to get their medications. And maybe we don't carry those controlled substances here, but we can find pharmacies in the community, have them get in with some manufacturer coupons, look and see if Adderall is at this pharmacy or that pharmacy, or maybe the student, wants to try a different type of medication to help manage their ADHD. And we also, have different samples that we can give students. There's non-stimulant medications to try. So there's lots of options, and our providers work with the students. Next slide, please. Payment options at Student Health. We have students, they can either pay with cash, a credit card with the student's name on it. We also take health savings account cards from parents and students who may have those high deductible plans and have those cards that they use to pay for services. We can put fees on the patient's student account here at WSU. We can also have them pay through the portal if they don't have a card with their name on it. That's easy as well. Insurance is not required at Student Health, but we do file insurance plans. We are in network with Blue Cross Blue Shield of all plans, Aetna, all plans. United Healthcare Student Resources is an option for students. A lot of students may not come into school with insurance, but they're shopping for insurance. This is a plan that is supported and offered by all of the Kansas Board of Regents schools in the state of Kansas. And it is a really good plan if you're interested, but we are in network with them and we are actually the preferred provider for them. And students pay hardly anything if they have that type of insurance. So if you're interested, there's a link on our website, and we'll get to the website later, where you can find health insurance information if you're looking to purchase. Next slide, please. So here are the health requirements. If you listen to anything I'm saying today, this is an important part. So all new students at Wichita State University are required to complete a tuberculosis screening, not necessarily a testing. And when I say all new students, this is domestic students who are born in the United States as well as international students. Everybody has some sort of tuberculosis screening that they have to do. And even if they came here, they went somewhere else for 2 years and then came back, anybody who's been gone for 2 years also has to redo this tuberculosis screening. It's an electronic version. You are prompted to complete this as a student when you first register for your orientation session. And at that point, you'll get sent to a link to complete the online questionnaire. It's only 4 questions. It's a super simple requirement. This requirement does have to be done before the 20th day of classes. And what happens after that is that your student may be put on hold. So for the easiest requirement at the university, it's a good one to get off your plate and make sure your student has done. They can see if they have done it, if they go to their My WSU page, and in that portal at the very bottom, there's a link. If they can't click on the link, they've already completed it. So you might just ask your student, hey, have you done these health requirements, the tuberculosis one, and anything else that I mentioned here. For students who live on campus, there is a meningitis requirement, and it's not exactly what you think, and we'll get to that in a second. But for health requirements, the tuberculosis screening is the only one required for all students. And like I said, it's a screening. Students who are not born in the United States do have to complete testing process. And we go through the Office of International Education to submit that information to all students so that they're aware. But there is a different process for international students, but every student at the university has to do tuberculosis screening. We recommend all vaccinations, of course. You know, any childhood vaccination that your student may have had in elementary, junior high, or high school, we want them to stay up to date. We want them to stay healthy. Your students are on a campus of 16 to 17,000 students, and it's a good way to get in contact with infectious diseases when we're all here. And so we really encourage you to make sure your students are up to date. Making sure they have their MMRs, their tetanus shots with pertussis in that, chickenpox vaccinations, which are called varicella. All of the ones that are listed here we encourage, but they are not required. Next slide, please. The meningitis requirement is only for students who are living in the on-campus Shocker Hall, the flats, and the suites. Any of the apartments around campus do not have this requirement. It's just on-campus living students. And it's not just, hey, we need you to go out and get a meningitis vaccine. There is an option for a waiver, but the documentation is what is required. And the documentation, if your student did get the vaccination, and you might take a shot of this with your camera on your phone, is that they need their meningitis type ACYW, a Menvio or Menactor. There's a couple other different types out there. And that has to be administered after the age of 16 to be valid. We get a lot of documents for students who probably had that first meningitis vaccine at age 11 or 12, but that needs to be updated after the age of 16 to be a valid immunization. So when we get all these documents, we make sure we are communicating with housing. There should be an email getting sent out soon to students who have not submitted anything yet for the meningitis requirement. And if you know you have and you still get that email, make sure your student reaches out to us. Clayne, do you want me to answer some questions here real quick? Yes, I can answer some questions. I'll go ahead and do that. Let's see. Are students able to grant their parents proxy access to their health info? That's a great question, Brian, and I'm going to get to that in a second, just so that I can kind of show you on the screen and that you could take a snapshot. But yes, there is an option for that. But I have some advice to that to go along with your question. So that's a great question. Thank you. Next slide. So here we are at the confidentiality. All medical records are strictly confidential. Your student is 18 or over. They have to follow all health information, privacy, and confidentiality guidelines like any other patient anywhere else. I do like to encourage parents, though, to really consider, they're in an educational facility. We protect them here at Student Health. Try and let your students navigate the healthcare world on their own here, because we can be a buffer. We can help them through that. Let them try and make their own appointments. We will help them if we are calling out patients' medications, as to where to find these places, how to use their insurance card. Different things like that. We ask that you try and let them manage this on their own, because they're going to be out in the real world here in 4 or 5 years, and we want to make sure they're prepared. However, my caveat to that is, if your student has a chronic illness that they have difficulty managing on their own, then by all means, you would want to bring your student to Student Health, either when you're here for orientation or when you move in August. And your student has to complete a authorization to release records specifically to you as the parent. They get to mark exactly what records they want to release to you, and then they date and sign it themselves as an adult who's over the age of 18. If your student is not going to be 18 yet, maybe for the first 3 or 4 months of college, we do have a minor release form that allows you to give us authorization to treat your student. But since your student is 17, you do get to have access to their information. And then when they turn 18, they'll follow under the same guidelines as everybody else. I would say that when you're looking at, preparing your student to come to campus and making them aware of different things health-wise, I would say on our website, we have a really good form, and it's called New Parents of New Students Moving to Campus. And all that does is have a list of things to get ready for. Things like, do they have a health insurance card that they can bring with them to campus? Does that have their name on it? If it doesn't, maybe look into getting their name on it. Do they know how to use their insurance card? They need to take it to all facilities. Do they know what places are in network or out of network? Maybe you do come from this local area, but maybe there are certain places you can't go to with your insurance. Do they have a prescription benefit card? Make sure they have one of those. Do they know their medical history and what year that was, or when let's say they are diabetic and they had a continuous glucose monitor put in, or an insulin pump? Those are good things to know. Do they know their allergies to medications or anything else? Do they know the medications that they're on, the dosages, how many refills they have? Those kind of things can also be entered into our My Shocker Health portal. And that way, your student has that all logged in. It's a good way for them to, know what their health records should look like. And then when they come to campus, that'll all be there already. I would say that a couple of other things that I find really important is packing a first aid kit for them, making sure you have Band-Aids, ibuprofen, Tylenol, something to clean wounds, alcohol swabs, different things like that. Send them in a little kit, make sure they have that prepared. We have that on that paper as well. And then kind of, reminding them about things. They're a new college student and there's lots of things going on campus, but making sure they're getting enough sleep, making sure they're eating meals appropriately, making sure that they are protecting their mental health. And if you're checking in with them regularly, you're seeing differences, making sure they know that they have resources here at the Student Wellness Center to either see a counselor or get on medication. Making sure that they are protecting themselves with alcohol, making sure they're protecting themselves sexually, different things like that to help prepare them, and that the student kind of, knows where their resources are on campus is good as well. Next slide. So I'm going to answer some of these questions, and it looks like, Dawn, what are the hours of operation at Student Health? On this slide, you can see our Student Wellness Center hours are 8 to 5, Monday through Friday. That QR code takes you right to that patient or parent list of preparing your student for college. So if you just scan that QR code, it'll take you right to our website and to that list. I would also say that on our website, we have lots of good information. We have a list of after hours and weekend emergency facilities or urgent care facilities that they can potentially go to. We have a list of pharmacies, a list of hospitals that are directly around this area. Also on our website, we have the link to log into our My Shocker Health portal. We have lots of information about forms that they might need to fill out when they get into their upper levels. As a sophomore, junior, senior, they might, if they enter the College of Health Professions or Applied Sciences as an education major, they might have different requirements, and we have those on there as well. We also have a list of all of our staff that work currently in the health center. And so your student may, find somebody that looks like them that they feel connected with after, seeing their picture and reading their bio. And then there's, some other information on there about vaccinations, where to find our over-the-counter medications. We also have a list of community resources here in Wichita. And being in an urban setting, there's a lot of different options for support and resources. So that was a great question. Any other questions here? Alicia, do you have anything you want to ask me while I'm on here?
There
Or
we
I could
go.
just make up stuff.
No, I think
You know me.
Everything that you asked is great. And I really liked how you talked, Heather, about allowing their students to kind of take the lead with their student health and working on the student service side of getting students over to Heather. A lot of times they say, oh, well, my mom made the appointment for me. I don't remember what time it's at. Or we spend a lot of time helping the students figure out how to schedule those appointments. And a lot of parents will hear me talk at orientation that, this is such a critical time for us to help them learn to advocate and navigate on their own. And I think student health does a phenomenal job of that and making sure that, when, Heather talks about the 18,000 messages that her staff sends to students, that's phenomenal. I do that on, probably a yearly basis. I can't tell you how many times I'm messaging my PCP, my daughter's sick, or this is the symptoms we're having. But for students to get that on campus. And so I know at times parents are really reluctant because they're having to that's a first big, I'm letting go. And I don't know what they're going to say. And so I think that's just amazing. And the work that her staff does. The thing that I will also just share is that within student health, a great part of the work that you all do, Heather, is really partner with the mental health side as well on campus. And so when we talk about the wellness center at Wichita State, it's kind of this one-stop shop for the mental, emotional, and physical health and well-being of students. And so can you talk a little bit about the facility that you guys, since it's still fairly new, and some of the opportunities and things that folks have visiting the wellness center?
Absolutely. So in the YMCA, when you enter the YMCA, it's a big, huge building directly across from the baseball field. And you'll see our door, the Student Wellness Center. All students have access to the YMCA as a student. They have immediate membership, not just to that one, but all the YMCAs in Wichita. And then when you enter the door to the Student Wellness Center, the nice thing about that is that student could be coming in for a TB test. They could be coming in for a physical exam, or could be going in and seeing their counselor or psychologist up in counseling services. So when they enter, they have the option of checking in for either their counselor for a one-on-one counseling session, or they could also be doing a group session. So there's options there. And then when they check in, they could also see student health. We have students also that work in our health outreach, prevention, and education, or HOPE services. And they have student ambassadors over there. So there's also a lot of applied learning opportunities in this center as well. I have many students who work in student health, either in the clinical side, rooming patients, getting experience in patient care. I also have students who work in our laboratory who went through a 12-hour training session on how to, take blood, do different testing. And then we have students who work at our front desk. We have students who work in counseling and students who work in the Hope offices. So the applied learning, but I think what is really good is, we might see a student once in their 4-year career here, but we also see students who may come in because they have allergy injections that they get every 2 weeks. And we can take that service from your physician. They mix up the allergy serum, send it to us. We can administer it to your student. And we develop really strong relationships with some of these students who have a regular time when they come into student health. Some of them who have done applied learning opportunities in our clinic as well have gone on. We had a student who was accepted to the Johns Hopkins School of Epidemiology because she did all of her COVID work with us when we were, dealing with COVID testing and COVID vaccinations, which we have all of that still. So the different services that are in our offices, you may be seeing our dietitian, you might be doing physical therapy, you might be doing something with athletic training. And I think the good part of that is we all talk to each other in a way to help support. We might have a counselor who thinks that one of their students needs to see the dietitian, and so they'll help that student get an appointment with the dietitian to maybe deal with some eating disorders or unhealthy relationships with food or something like that, chronic illness. And then we may have our mental health nurse practitioner who prescribes a lot of medication say, I really think you need to get back in touch with your counselor upstairs. Let's go out and make an appointment. And we have some of those connections where the counselor might come down and confer with that psychiatric nurse practitioner to see, hey, how can we better support this student and make sure they're getting everything they need while they're here? Is that kind of what you were asking me? Okay, good. Do we have
Yeah.
any other questions? I
Yeah,
feel
I
like
think I don't see any more questions, but
okay.
I think that's just such a critical part of the work that
Mhm.
I think that makes the work that we do on campus in student health and wellness just unique, is that it's that one-stop shop for the mental health and the physical health and well-being, and being able to
Mhm.
have that open line of communication of how are we best serving our students, and hey, I'm seeing something different, hey, maybe you need to get them back in for services. And so that's all great. We will take additional questions if there's any. If you have yet to attend new student orientation, Ms. Stafford will be there to answer questions. We will also be available. We have a parents lounge that we have set up for folks, so you can stop by anytime during orientation and ask questions as well. But in your packing list, and I think that's one thing that Heather said that's really important. As you go out and you're making all of these packing lists up, make sure you buy a first aid kit. Make sure you find a first aid kit and include a thermometer. I can't tell you how many times these kids are like, they come into my office and they're like, Miss Alicia, I don't feel good. Can you feel if I have a fever? Ooh, baby, why are you in my office? No. And so making sure they have access to a thermometer, basic Advil, Tylenol, whatever it is that they
Yep.
use, so that they have that at their disposal.
Yep.
Well,
Quinn, if
students,
you can post that last slide again, it has that QR code that takes them to our list to get them prepared for coming to campus. And it has a whole bunch of things to put in that first aid kit that I think is helpful. A lot of students, and also if you're going to send your student with a thermometer, show them how to use it, please, because that would be something that we have noticed that students may not know how to use those. I do see a question from Joe. Will the students get this great knowledge as well? Yes, we do orientation for parents on orientation day, but we also have a session for students. Now, of course, we need to make it fun and more engaging for them, and kind of give you an idea what they do. We use this powder that that our transition mentors put on their hands. And then we have a 1 minute where everybody has to run around, shake hands with each other, introduce themselves, where they're from. And then we talk about diseases, getting in contact with somebody, something that's infectious. And then we talk about our services. We talk about the meningitis requirement for housing students. And we also talk about the tuberculosis screening. So yes, they also see us, not as long as the parents, but at least it's an exposure so that they know we're here.
Yeah. And Don
Dawn.
had asked about insurance. And so if you could just mention again real quickly, the insurance from providers that are not BC, Aetna, or United Healthcare.
So we file insurance for all plans. All insurances that student hand us, we file insurance. We may not be in network and a preferred provider, but we find that most cases they pay at least something for it. So we don't take Medicare or Medicaid at this time, but let me kind of give you a breakdown of what our services look like, because as opposed to the community where you might pay a $75 office visit fee or maybe a $130 office visit fee for a specialist like a psychologist or a dietitian, you're only paying $30 to $35 for that office visit. It doesn't include the medications or labs, but not everybody needs that. So that cost of that office visit is way cheaper. And we help students if they don't have the inability to pay. We work with students in different ways to help manage some of those costs. But we still file insurance for every single insurance that we get. And even if it's something we know they're not going to pay for, we still file it in the hopes that we're going to get as much paid for that for the student as possible. We will have the students tell us what pharmacy they want us to call or e-scribe their prescriptions out to so that they can use their insurance card. A lot of our students live off campus, and let's say they'd rather just use their insurance at Walgreens. We will do that for them. They don't have to get their medicines through us. So we use insurance as much as possible. A lot of facilities in Wichita are no longer taking United Healthcare. And so that is something that a lot of facilities are dealing with right now. But we still file the claims. We still see that a lot of it is getting paid for. We just aren't a preferred provider. Great question, though.
Yeah. And I think the other part of with, just the cost for the health services, for psychological services, it's $10. $10. Like you cannot pay that anywhere in the community and get seen within a 2-week time frame. And so I think the work that our folks in our student health and wellness area that they're doing to keep costs reasonable for students is truly a blessing. And we won't turn students away if they are not able to pay for any reason. We do go above and beyond in trying to make sure that we're working for them, because if they're not healthy and feeling well, then they're not going to do well in class. And that's our end goal, is making sure that we get your student, to graduation and beyond. And so great job to student health and all the work that you all are doing. Any other questions? Looks like we are kind of running down here. Nope. All right. So if you have any other questions for us, feel free to send us a message online. You can always stay connected with us at wichita.edu/family. We have a monthly newsletter that is sent out. In addition, you can always stay connected on our social media handles, and we look forward to seeing you in upcoming table talks, and hopefully are able to see you on campus soon this summer. And if not, we look forward to welcoming you and your families to campus in August. Until then, take care and be safe.